Hello and welcome. Today we're going to make horchata. This is a rice-based drink that pretty much anyone should be able to get the ingredients for. We're going to make the most common form of it, and that's why I say anybody should be able to get the ingredients. For those ingredients, you're going to need 4 cups of water, 1 cup white rice, preferably long grain. If you use a medium grain, you'll have to reduce that amount by a small bit. 1/3 cup sugar, and 1 cinnamon stick. Alright, so starting with our cinnamon stick, what we're going to need to do is just crush it up a little bit. And the reason you want to do that is because the more surface area you can get, the faster and more intense the cinnamon flavor is going to be in your final drink. So we definitely want to crush it a lot. In my case, I have a regular mallet, kitchen mallet, that I'm going to use for that inside a plastic bag so that stuff doesn't go everywhere. You will, if you do something similar to what I'm doing here, you'll have to do what I'm doing now, which is crushing up all the long pieces. Because a mallet's great for breaking it down, but not great for breaking down long pieces. So you have to do that a little bit with your hands, but otherwise you can actually just crush it up with your hands and it'll be just fine that way. You just want to get it down to a fairly small flake size. The smaller pieces are going to allow the cinnamon flavor to go out into the liquid and just kind of create a more intense cinnamon flavor as well as a more evenly distributed cinnamon flavor. So we just want to break them up into the smallest chunks possible. And like I said, if you look at what I'm going to show you here in a moment, that's pretty much exactly where we want it. And not part of this, you're going to want a little bit of cinnamon for garnish as well. This can be used, but you'll probably want just some regular cinnamon powder. And once we're done with our cinnamon and have it all nice and broke up, we just need to add our ingredients to the blender. Now, the reason we're blending this down is we want as much surface area as possible so that it can soak for either a little bit of time, which you can do for right around 3 hours, and that's not going to have quite the same amount of flavor as the other version, but it is still very good. Again, you want to get them as small as you can, though, for a shorter soak time. So even what I'm doing here it wouldn't be too large, but it would be definitely approaching that point to where you wouldn't get a really good, consistent tasting liquid out of it if you go too small and you're going to do a short soak. Short soaks are basically, you have to have it as small as you can get it, and then you'd be using cheesecloth or something really extra fine to filter the solids out of it. On the other hand, if you're going to go with something more like a 24-hour soak in the refrigerator, or in my case, overnight, about 10 hours, I think, you're going to get a much more even flavor, and you're going to get a much more intense flavor out of the cinnamon, but you'll also not have to break the rice down quite as much. There's even a version of this where you just don't break the rice down, and then you just let it soak for like 3 days in the refrigerator. That one actually has the most flavor out of all of them, but it's pretty lengthy amount of time just to make a drink. So most people do something more similar to this. So basically, once everything starts making a more consistent noise, so you won't hear any little extra pops and snaps sort of noise, once it's all very consistent, you want to check it. And as you can see here, it'll be in small pieces. And with our piece sizes this small, we can either go for a quick counter soak, or we can go for a prolonged refrigerator soak and achieve good results with both. You've completed the hardest part, the waiting for it to soak part. So after either, as I said, 3 hours or 12, we just want to strain out all the solids in there and make sure that, when you're drinking it, you're not getting any little chunks of rice. You can use a fine sieve for this, or even kind of a medium if you don't crush it up too much, or cheesecloth. If you have cheesecloth, it'll take about 3 folds to make it, and I'll talk about that in another video if you haven't experienced it, but for those who have, about 3 folds will do it. And you just want to get all the chunks out. And once we get all that and strain it, we're good. Refrigerate or serve over ice, and hey, horchata. So a typical garnish for this drink would be a sprinkling of cinnamon, as you can see in the pictures I'm showing here, and sometimes a stick of cinnamon also soaking in it, which does give it a little extra flavor, but not too much, so it's not like you have to have that. But it does make for nice pictures if you want to do that. This actually goes pretty well in coffee. It actually goes fairly well in tea as well. And that's kind of nice. If you can't get a non-dairy milk, you can probably make this and kind of get by with some of the coffees and things like that. And the aforementioned not having dairy, allowing it to be out at picnics and things like that. So, I really hope you try this recipe. It is excellent. And for all the people who have subscribed and are sharing, thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. I will be producing more of these as we go. So, for everyone watching and who's still here, have a great day and a great meal.